Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
We have a natural consequence of doing well at something. I'm sure you're going to tell me the technical terms for it, but our bodies give us a response. We feel good because we've achieved something and we've worked hard at it.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
Hello, it's Dr. Justin Coulson, dad to 6 daughters and the author of 6 books about raising happy families, founder of happyfamilies.com.au. I'm here with Kylie, my wife, my co-host, and Kylie, we've had an email come through to podcasts at happyfamilies.com.au, and I reckon this one is going to set the cat among the pigeons.
Let's hear it.
Okay, this one comes from somebody who wanted to rename Mainless.
Remain nameless?
I feel like it's been a big day already. How is that possible? This person said, I've got 2 primary school age children who do reasonably well at their chosen sport. They love their sport, especially the connection they have with teammates. And just hearing that, it makes me happy straight away because at this age, primary school, it's all about connection and competence. It's not about anything else. Anyway, she says they train a few days per week because they enjoy it. I don't see anything unhealthy about the level of involvement in this sport at this point. However, there is increasing pressure put on their teammates with their parents now paying their own children when they win or when they improve upon their previous performance. I'm not speaking about a few dollars, which I would still disagree with, but amounts of $50 for a single event.
Wow.
Imagine that. That beats popping down to the local luxury family restaurant with those big yellow arches to celebrate the win.
To have a soft serve.
Yeah, that's right. $50. There are also examples of children not receiving cash but being allowed to buy, quote, anything you want. And these payments and gifts are not linked to effort but purely to results.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing? Have you heard of this happening? Like, 'cause you spend more time on sidelines at sporting events and school events than I do. Does anything like that pop up in your conversations?
Not so much in the sporting arena, but we don't spend a lot of time on
we
the
just let the kids go
sidelines
and play their game and
sporting
we
fields.
do other things. That's right.
But definitely in academia.
Well, she highlights that as well. So let me get to that in a sec. This person has said it's concerning for 2 reasons. Only 2, according to this person, but we'll go with these 2 first. For the kids who can't fully understand why their friends get paid to win when they don't, like, how is this fair? Why don't my parents pay me when I win? How can parents explain this? And secondly, I worry a lot about the kids who are getting paid to win. These are usually the kids who break down and who are inconsolable when they don't win. Athletes simply cannot improve their times at each and every race. How do they translate this and how their parents must feel about them when they lose? So while trying unsuccessfully, I might add, to explain the reasons I will never pay my children to win, they listed other examples that I was also unaware of. They explained how some of their friends will be given quite large sums of money if they sit tests and obtain placements in opportunity classes and or selective academic high schools. So this is a New South Wales thing. And she says, I would love it if this issue could be part of your podcast. As adults, most of us work more for the money rather than the love of our jobs. And I think that's somewhere that society has just gotten it so wrong. We chase this idea of success instead of fulfillment. This idea that I'm supposed to have the house and the car and the income rather than doing what I love and what lights me up. Anyway, she says money is often our motivation, but it feels wrong when I hear about children being paid to win. And then she asks for us to talk about it.
Does she tell you how old the children are?
They're primary school age children.
Wow. This is...
So let's say they're 8 and 11.
That's intense.
Yeah, and not just that, but from a psychological point of view, it's completely unhealthy. It's dysfunctional, and I utterly reject that there are any benefits to come from this.
This just is fascinating to me. It's such a different way of seeing the world to anything that you and I have done as parents.
Yeah, and we've been very deliberate to not reward our children, but to encourage them to be motivated within and to do stuff that lights them up. I'm not going to pay my kids to quote unquote succeed. That is to do better than other people and make other kids feel lousy as well.
I know plenty of adults who literally are doing these amazingly high-paying jobs and are just so miserable. And the last thing I want for my child is to go down that road just to have an exorbitant pay package.
Yeah, it's all about the financial reward. Forget about fulfillment. Forget about what you love. It's all about the results. And research actually shows both in an educational setting and on the sporting field, and in corporate environment, that when we're driven by financial rewards, we're much more likely to behave unethically. So what happens is money motivates you to get more money. It doesn't motivate you to be better or to love what you're doing more. It's this Alfie Kohn in one of his books, I think it was in Punished by Rewards, he says what we've essentially done is we've set up this system where we say, if you do this, you'll get that. And what that means now is that all the focus is on the that, and there's no focus on this. This is just a means to get that. In other words, this, the sport or the exam, is just the hoop that I have to jump through to get that. And what we're really doing as parents, when we're giving financial rewards for success on the sporting field or in the classroom, is we're saying, we think with the very best of intentions that we're saying to our kids, this classroom stuff or this sports stuff or this success really matters. But what we're really saying is focus on the money, focus on the dollars, focus on the reward. Whatever you do in life is instrumental to getting something else rather than it's good for its own sake.
Well, I'm wondering, at a primary school level, if $50 is the going rate.
Oh, that's so much money.
I can't imagine what they would be needing to pay their children once they hit high school, because $50 is not going to be enough.
Yeah.
Sooner or later. So I started doing a little bit of research on this because this, like I said, is just blowing my mind a little bit. And I found some really kind of interesting stuff. There's a list of cons that I found to actually, what it does to our children as we pay them. And the first one was it's providing a short-term solution to a long-term problem. If our children aren't actually motivated already just because of the sheer love of it or a desire to learn and be better, then we're actually just band-aiding.
I would even go further. When I look at what the academic research shows in this area, it shows that their intrinsic motivation for something will actually decrease the more we reward them with extrinsic rewards. There's a study, it's a classic study now from probably 25 years ago, where students were paid to read books. They were given pizza vouchers. And what the researchers found was that book reading went through the roof. And they thought, well, the pizza vouchers are fantastic. But then they looked at what was actually happening. And the kids are reading the shortest books they possibly can with the biggest words and the most pictures, because it's not about the books and the reading anymore. It's actually about the pizza. And it actually undervalues, it devalues, I should say, the very thing that you're rewarding, because they're focused on the goodie at the end. Do this and you get that.
Well, we have a natural consequence of doing well at something. I'm sure you're going to tell me the technical terms for it, but our bodies give us a response. We feel good because we've achieved something and we've worked hard at it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we're kind of saying that feeling's not enough.
No.
Like we're telling our kids that natural ability to kind of have those feelings is not worth the end result. Or maybe after the break, we can talk about some ways that we can help our children work through this challenge if they're surrounded by friends who are actually being paid to succeed.
It's the Happy Families Podcast.
Imagine a home where discipline got results without anyone having to feel bad or in trouble. The Do's and Don'ts of Discipline is a webinar to help parents set limits with love, compassion and humanity. Find it now at happyfamilies.com.au/shop.
It's the Happy Families Podcast, the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now. And today we've been talking about a really intriguing topic. We're talking about paying children to win.
Yeah, so this email, kids getting paid to win, they're breaking down under the pressure, they're getting $50 for winning a single event, they're getting paid large sums of money to get into selective classes at school. What's it all mean in terms of motivation? That's been the conversation so far. But the specific question that this mum asked in her email through podcasts, that's podcasts with an S at happyfamilies.com.au, was, how do I explain this to my kids? How do I talk to them about it? Because everything I've said so far has not worked. My kids just want the cash. They want to be like everyone else. How come we're not getting money? I don't want to play this sport anymore. It's not fair.
Well, $50. I mean, I'd want $50 too.
Yeah, it's a pretty tidy sum.
Or I can buy whatever I want. That's even better.
I know that I've got the books and the PhD, but I love your take on these kinds of things. How would you go about this?
I think the first thing that I would be doing with my child is sitting down and just hearing their viewpoint on things. Obviously, this is something that's really challenging for them and they want to be heard.
Okay. So that sounds to me like you're saying that you get curious, not furious, that you lean in, that you explore what's happening for them. Explore, don't explode. Understand, don't reprimand. You're trying to get their take on it
Yeah, how do they feel about this? How does it make them feel? What are they seeing in their friends as a result of this payment plan that's in place for them? You know, do they like what they see in their friends? Are they noticing that they are, you know, the kind of good sport that we encourage our children to be? Do they embrace the values that we're instilling in our children? Or do they actually start to see that things are deteriorating on the playing field as a result?
Okay, so we're going to call that explore. What would you do after you've explored what's going on from their perspective?
So usually we would have a conversation about our values. We'd reinstate the values that we have in our home. And one of, I guess, our little phrases is every family has their own rules, but in our family, this is how we do things.
Our kids hate that. They're like, no, I want to be in their family. Their family's better than ours.
Because the reality is every home is going to be different. Every home is going to have a different set of values and a different, you know, kind of way of doing things. And if our children are constantly looking to everybody else, it's going to be really hard.
Okay, so you've explored what's going on for them and now you've explained what's happening in our world. It sounds like you're quoting me back to me, because I have these 3 E's of effective discipline where we explore what's happening for our children through their eyes, stand in their shoes, take their perspective, and then we explain what our expectations are or what our rules are. Is there anything else that you would do, Mrs. Happy Families?
Well, I guess now that you've said it like that, we're going to find a way to empower them.
Yes.
Are we going to find a way to empower them?
It's working. It's working all these years and it's working. We're on the same page.
So let's put your expertise to the test. How are you going to empower these children in this situation?
Oh, right. Throw it back at me. You've been doing so well. That's a really tricky question because they want something that we're not going to give them. When we've explored how they feel about it, they're probably going to say, it's not fair. I want to get what they're getting. And they might even be able to identify that it's not ideal and that it does have negative impacts, negative ramifications around identity, around bad sportsmanship, around crushing pressure. They may even be able to see that even in the primary school years. And when we explain what our expectations are, that may create some resistance. So when we look at our kids and empower them, we literally say, so what do you think we should do from here? It's possible that the 8-year-old is going to say, well, I think I should still get $50 because they're kids. Empowerment doesn't mean that we give them whatever they want. It means that we sit down and we work things out together. My inclination, especially with primary school age children, but even with older children, would be that we would have a conversation about what fulfillment is, what enjoyment is, what development of competence and mastery feels like. And I'd be saying things like, we just want you to enjoy the game. And we live a good life. We get to have lots of fun. We always have treats. But it doesn't really matter to us whether you win or lose. We just want to see you enjoying time with your friends and getting better at the sport. That's all that we want to see. And so long as you're enjoying it, we're going to have a great time. And that's much better than all the pressure so that you can have $50 in your bank that you're probably going to blow on some Beanie Boo or something ridiculous like that anyway. So that would be how I'd be approaching it. And while the empower idea is supposed to hand over the power to the kids, when they're this age, I'd probably be a little more inclined to indicate that this is how we're going to go. And the kids are usually going to follow. They'll follow a good leader who has listened and who has made life fun for them. They're willing to get behind a parent who they can see has their best interests at heart. They trust us when we do that.
So when I was younger, I remember my parents we'd bring home our report cards and we would sit down and we'd go through the report and look at our grades. And my parents weren't so much worried about my grades. They wanted to see that I had put in effort and that I felt good about what I had achieved. Without fail, the night of our report cards coming home meant we got takeout. We didn't get takeout very often at all. This was a really, really big treat for us.
Yeah, and back in the 80s, no one had takeout regularly back then.
It wasn't so much a reward as it was a celebration of all that we'd accomplished. And I really loved that. And I feel like sometimes instead of putting so much emphasis on a reward so much, we can definitely have these moments with our children where we celebrate that they've been involved, that they've participated, that they've enjoyed themselves, that they've learnt, they've grown. And I think that might be one of the ways that you could kind of work through this challenge for a young child who's feeling hard done by.
At the end of every netball game, every soccer game, every cricket game, every tennis match, every whatever it is that your kids are playing, hockey, volleyball, rowing, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, at the end of it, there should only really be 2 questions that we ask our children. Number 1, how do you feel like you went? Or even better, did you enjoy that? And then the next question should be, where do you want to go and get a treat? We don't need to tell them how they did. We don't need to judge them or evaluate them. We certainly don't need to pay them. And if we want them to do well throughout the rest of their lives and do stuff because it feels good, we're much better off asking those questions than saying, oh, it was only a draw. It's only $20. Oh, it's a win. That's 50. I just can't think of anything
more damaging. Well, we really hope you enjoyed the podcast today.
Yeah, if you have enjoyed the podcast, we love it when you leave those 5-star ratings and reviews so that other people can find out about the podcast to make their family happier. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media, and Craig Bruce is our executive producer. If you would like more information about how to make your family happier, try our month-to-month support via the Happy Families memberships, because a happy family doesn't just happen. All the details are at happyfamilies.com.au.